All right, we are live. Good morning, everybody. You
Good
got
morning.
your water, got your tea,
Mm-hmm.
got your morning beverage. Did you take your swig of apple cider vinegar this morning? I'm gonna have to do that once we end our conversation today because I didn't take my apple cider vinegar, but I'm going to. So today we are back again with our cardiac nurse ninja Nadia, veteran in the cardiac
You said.
nursing world.
Mhm.
And we are talking heart health today because why? Why are we talking heart health? Well, you can't live without one.
Mhm.
And we need to take care of our hearts. And sometimes we forget how to do this because we are taking care of so many other people, so many other things. We're distracted by the politics that's happening, and it's all one big whirlwind sometimes. So we need some coaching and some reminders. So,
Mhm.
welcome back, Nurse Nadia. Welcome back. Mm.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
And let's get into our questions today. When I talk to people, it's interesting. They say, "Well, I don't have any questions about my heart." But these are folks that have like issues. They have chronic issues
Hmm.
in one way or another, and it's almost like the heart is the last thing that we think about. It's one of
Right.
our most vital organs, and we think about it last.
Hmm. Right.
Um,
Tucked away
so
and protected.
today, go ahead.
I said just because it's tucked away and protected.
Yeah,
Hmm.
exactly. And speaking of it being tucked away, how how does heart health begin outside of your body? Because we don't know what's really going in. We can't see our insides, so
Hmm.
to some extent I suppose it's an outside job. What do we do? What do we do outside of our body to help what's going on the inside for our hearts? What does that look like?
It looks like going to the beach,
Mm.
being body of water, or if you can't get to the beach, then being near a body of water. Um, Having some quiet time, some self reflection. I hate to use words like meditation because then people might have another perception of what that might be. Sometimes just sitting down, listening to your favorite music and being quiet, just taking a moment, close your eyes and breathe deep.
Mm.
So, those are all things we do for that we label as meditation, you know.
Mm.
So, and then when people talk about their lack of energy, that could be your heart talking to you as well. So we were talking last week. We were talking about some of the signs that that something is going on with your heart, and it may be as simple as, I'm needing an extra cup of coffee a day. Or I'm not feeling as motivated. Or I'm feeling not so. My energy level is somewhere around need a nap, but you know, an energy drink might do it for me. So
Mm.
definitely taking the time out.
Mm. And it's interesting, we were just chatting this morning
Mm.
because I feel I'm fairly energetic. I'm fairly energetic, but I was feeling a little, I'm not tired, but I am not feeling the energized way that I normally do today. So I haven't checked the news. I don't know what's going on in the news cycle. I don't know what's going on around the world, but I don't know. It feels like a bit of a shift to me. That's what this feels like.
Definitely feels like a shift. You're right. Change, as you know, having a baby, that time after your body has the child and adjusts to the baby being on the outside of you, and so a new beginning, a new life, that's what that represents. And
Mm.
think with everything going on, with people coming into another awareness, and their role in that awareness, and making change. Oh, that's the government. Oh, that's those people over there. And I think a lot of self-reflection is going on right now. And uh,
Mhm,
I'm listening because I'm very careful not to discuss religion or politics at work, and never with patients.
mhm,
And the reason being is because then, whatever you think, if they're watching Fox News, and I'm just using it as an example, not saying Fox News is racist, let me be clear. But sometimes, people say things that they on Fox News that they don't say other places, or the way they deliver the message. And so, last week when we were talking about microaggression,
mhm,
sometimes when you hear something that's unsettling over and over and over again, the person who's listening and not offended might perceive that if I come into the room and I hear it, immediately I'm like, what? you know, but
mhm,
then I go, you know what? That's not for me and doesn't apply to me. And if someone wants to start, seeing my reaction, wants to start, entertaining a conversation, I'm like, you know what? Really doesn't matter though, does it? Because all you want me to do is respect you, show you respect, take care of your needs while I'm in here. So
mhm,
whether or not we agree or not, that's not, it doesn't matter.
mhm.
What matters is that I respect you and take care of you right now, So, um, and ever since President Obama was running for presidency, when I had that conversation one time with a room full of people who did not look like me, and they were like, "So what do you think?" And I was like, "Ooh, I don't do that." And their answer was, "Good answer." I said, "No, sir. That's not a conversation we want to have. I don't want to entertain that. Let's keep it respectful,
Oh,
you know." So,
yes,
and that
yes, yes.
too, that also leads to um, being able to identify, because last week we talked about that too. Identify the things that are not correct, and you may be just overlooking, but those
Hmm,
things add into or equal, it's like one plus one plus one, that all equals microaggression. um, those types of conversations, not realizing, like, when you step away from a situation and go, you know what, that's not for me, and I don't need to internalize it. And I
yeah.
was all this week since we spoke last, I've been watching a couple of videos, one by Dr. Joyce DeGruy and a couple of other people on YouTube that really have the perspective of, if we don't internalize the microaggression, or even if we do, but don't address it later, maybe when you're having your quiet time with yourself, and go, there were times where maybe you might have demonstrated a lack of self love for yourself. And
Hmm,
then um, turned into maybe an argument with your partner, your mate later on. And you're like, what was that about?
mhm,
Oh, with my husband gives me at least like 10, 15, 20 minutes to decompress after a hard shift. And it's just such a good release.
mhm,
And that's what I'm leaning to. We got to release things.
mhm.
I think one of the
Oh,
questions.
okay. Okay. So identifying things that you know are not correct
Hmm.
and releasing them at the appropriate time.
Right.
Releasing them at the appropriate time. Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. Because the
Hmm.
appropriate time in the situation that you described was not at work in the middle of all of the folks asking you
Right.
questions. That was not the appropriate time. Okay.
Right.
Got
Right.
you. I got you. Yeah, I am definitely feeling that this is just today feels like a very reflective time.
Hmm. Hmm.
Which actually, the other thing here in Colorado, in Denver, there were, and I'm sure this is the case in a lot of communities across our nation and across the world, there were several shootings,
Hmm.
um, a couple of which I I was able to hear, like, you hear gunshots.
Mm-hmm.
And so it made me wonder, when you are in an environment.
Can I please have some french fries?
Okay, later. We'll do that later.
But
I'm
so
talking right now,
hungry.
please. Here. Sorry.
I don't.
No, it's okay.
See, we took care of this before.
Yes.
The camera is just a draw. It's a draw. You can't even help it. I don't know. Okay, I'll do that for you after mommy's done talking. Um, but it highlighted for me that even outside of our own being, you were saying to be around a body of water to
Mm-hmm.
help soothe and take care of your heart. Um, Within a community, the community has a heart too. And there are things that happen in a community that they feel hurtful. They didn't happen to you, but it still hurts. And so,
Mm-hmm.
share your thoughts about taking care of a community's heart that is aching or worn or tired. What does that
Mm-hmm.
look like for you?
Mm-hmm. What it's been like for me is because the majority of my coworkers are not of my perspective, are not African American, not are not brown or black people, and when a coworker who is of color wants to talk about some of the stresses that they're feeling, maybe taking 2 minutes to go off to the side to allow that person to decompress, because it is, I don't minimize anyone's experience. And if someone is telling me, with the climate of things going on right now and having to be neutral, I'm having a problem being neutral, you know, because when people want to approach, and this happened last night, when someone wanted to approach me about it and talk to me, I'm like, this is a great conversation. Let's keep it to a minimum in the hallway, because you never know what that trigger is going to be, and you never know what someone's going to overhear and not have perspective. You know what I mean?
Mm, mm,
So, um, and let's be real. I didn't go to work during a pandemic because I, you know, felt the need to serve the community.
mhm,
I felt the need to serve my family. And with being the primary person working right now, full time, because my husband is working, just not full time outside of the home. It is, it puts you in a position where you're definitely scheduling time for self care. Just trust me. Right now, we were actually able to fly to Tucson, and just even being in Tucson and then driving across country, it gave us time away from the concentration of people, and this issue that I have to gown up and mask up for and wear goggles now at work. So listening is going to be key right now, but also have it focused. If
mm,
you're having a conversation and someone may go to the far right or far left, make sure that you don't internalize, but you at the same time are a good listening board. And I think right now, as I was telling my husband, I just take for granted I have you to talk to about these things. But having conversations with you and having conversation, maybe you may or may not have someone to talk to. There's, of course, a plethora of information on YouTube. I just want to say it's very hard for me right now because, if I hear a comment at work, I just walk away,
mhm, mhm,
because you have to know when it's time to educate people and when it's time to take a step back, you
mm.
know? And here's why. Because if you don't see me, and I think it's at a place where if I have to have a conversation with you, and this is something I did say at work, I did speak up about, was I'm sorry, what you're saying is bothering me right now because I'm of color, obviously. I have a husband, sons, cousins, brothers. I'm thinking of moving to another country so we'll be safe.
Right.
They will be safe. I will be safe.
Hmm.
And they were like, "Oh, you don't know how it is at that country, but I know how it is here."
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
I
We
definitely.
know how
So
it
I
is.
exactly. And so for you to assume that it's better somewhere else just because you don't have a personal perspective is one thing.
Mhm.
But I definitely know, and excuse me, expression, I definitely understand the kick ass over here. I understand the war here.
Mhm.
And, it gets a little taxing. Maybe I want to live somewhere where I don't have to be concerned about my grandsons going outside or
Right.
when they go to someone else's house.
Mhm.
So you and I had that conversation about sleepovers before.
Mhm.
And, I just wanted to be clear with my children. It's not always the person you know, is the person they know and who's in their inner circle.
Right. Right.
So let's get to question number 2.
Right.
I'm trying to stay on track because we're at 16:12 right now. Trying to
Yeah,
hurry.
we are. And really, I just wanted to, talk a little bit about community. Honey, I can't do that right now. Okay. Thank you. Walk
Well,
away.
with the community in terms of heart protection, we need to be very clear that we are not always going to share the same perspective. And, calling people like if they don't share your perspective a coon or homophobic or whatever, some label, that's
Right.
not going to help our community either. Because for me, I'm very supportive of the LBT plus community.
Mhm.
However, when you see us, just on the surface, when we're having a conversation and we're talking about a social issue, who you associate as and who you are in love with doesn't come into play here. Nobody walks up to you and go, "Hey, are you?" You know,
Right.
this is a thing of culture and color. Let's be clear. We're all part of the human race family, but this is about what is affecting people of color. you
Mhm.
know so if they want to align, if other organizations want to align themselves with us, fine. But as I told my family, I don't care, about that perspective. I want to know we're safe. We're not even a place of being safe on the surface,
Right.
just on the surface level.
Mhm.
So I think to disassociate yourself with your community because someone said something that you didn't agree with, you know, but we're all here to protect one another. You know,
Right. Right.
um, that's clear.
Yeah, that's not this time. This is not the time to
Right.
disassociate from the community based on
Right.
ideologies. I was just
Yes.
talking this morning about my husband was telling me something that was in the news today. Just one article. It was about somebody who was supporter of the person in the White House right now, and they were also a doctor, and they had this theory about whether, I guess, in support of us. Actually, I'm not going to talk about all the details of it because I don't know, and I'm not clear on it. But the point of me bringing that up was this particular person infused this new perspective, and they
Mhm.
were used because they were black, because we think all these black talking heads around the person in the White House, I guess they think that's going to be effective. I don't know. I don't know. But when we see that and people are listening, that is not the reason to disassociate with community. And it's a distraction.
Right.
The point is, we need to understand we're living like in this huge age of distractions. And how does that affect our hearts? If we are heart centered and grounded in something other than, pop culture, we will have the ability to discern what's truth and what needs to stay over in that other corner,
Mhm. Well,
whatever you call it.
right. Right. Well, I think last week we talked about, I identifying the things that are a trigger for you, or may send you down a path of internalizing some, someone else's hate or lack of self-love. I think a lot of that is because I'm not clear on how you can be a supportive of someone who says some of the things that they have said,
Mhm.
especially about the shit countries, developing countries who are
Yeah,
all uh, encountered colonialism in some way, shape, or form. But
exactly.
if you support the person in the White House and that's what you're doing,
Right.
um, to me, does that show demonstrate self love? Not so much, but that's how I define it, and
Mhm.
that's, I think, an important way to label people who don't share your opinion. Like, there are a couple of actors who had shared some opinions, and entertainers that I don't necessarily agree with, but I'm
Mhm.
not going to label them, you
Right.
know, a coon or Uncle Tom. Um, it's just not for me to do. I don't see how that ever will bring us to a table of, having a conversation as a community. But at the same time, I know I need to not listen,
Mhm.
filtering, have my filter up really high,
Mhm.
and I always go, if whatever you're saying is not for me, it's not for me. And
Right.
that means I'm going to turn it off.
Right. Right.
And like with social media, if someone says something that you don't agree with, turn it off. Don't even give them the full time that the video is going to run. Because
Right.
if the introduction is a little not pleasant, the rest of it is, just leads to not being so pleasant either. And I
Right.
think that's what, all right, so I'm going to agree to disagree with you and turn it off and
Right.
walk away from that and focus on the safety of mine, me and mine, which is our community. But if you want to, act unsafe and have unsafe alliances, then you need to, be very clear, stay over there. So
Right.
that's how I went into that.
Exactly. Exactly. And I will just say right now, um, we already said it feels like just a very reflective time today for some reason. And I just want to encourage people, that thing that you do when you don't let everything in, when you say no,
Right.
when you walk away from conversations, that is protecting your heart space
Hmm.
and beyond, right? But it is definitely protecting your heart space. Those conversations that you mentioned, that we deliberately decide, you know what, I'm not going to engage in this. Probably your intuition talking to you, and once again,
Exactly. Exactly.
your
Yeah.
heart space. In politics, when we see these people who are looking like us, they even try to act like us because they're trying to reach us, and it might seem familiar, but when you hear them saying things and you get that little ting in the back of your mind,
Hmm.
it strikes you in a certain way. That's your heart space talking to you, and it may not be a message that you need to internalize. That whole cut it off thing that you said, I appreciate that. I appreciate that so much because we have to have that ability of discernment in order to protect those very special things that make our whole body function and
Right.
make our whole body well and protect each other,
Right.
That intuition protects one another. So I want to know if in your parting comments for today, if you would share with us, what is your jewel? When you know that there is something brewing, it could be political, it could be something that might even, be physical, something doesn't feel right. What is your jewel
Mm. For
that
one,
you do?
you definitely go ahead. Okay. So what I do when it doesn't feel, excuse me, feel right. Um, I definitely take a pause. I've been taking a lot of pauses lately, especially at work, to frame what I want to say in response to what's going on in my environment. To frame it so that um, you don't want to be offensive, and I don't want to be too. I want to stay in balance with how I present information. And some like last night, sometimes I have very hard information to be received, but you just have to say it in a gentle way, and not of the truth. And I think that's how we have to be with ourselves. Something is really troubling you, or causing you to take multiple pauses. Step away from it, because I think we have, as women especially, we have been so used to taking care of everyone and taking in everyone. And as I tell my children, your emergencies are not mine. So let's take a breath, breathe, and figure out how we can resolve the situation. And I think that's the
Right.
same thing that goes for anything outside yourself. When someone's bringing you their fire, their emergency, step back, breathe, because that'll help them to breathe. And then you can, de-escalate, bring it back down to neutral. Because all of that stress, can wear out your force field. And
Mm,
our force field, body protecting our jewel, which is our heart, our heart and our mind, our soul. And because I see it every shift when someone didn't protect themselves, even from themselves, whether it was from smoking. Um, and next week when we talk, let's talk about smoking and how it affects the circulatory system, which is our
mhm, mm,
really powerful example of how the toxins in cigarettes can cause irreparable damage to your limbs. But that's for next week. So yeah,
mhm.
definitely now I
Okay, okay. I would love to.
about that.
I didn't catch your last statement.
Oh, just
What did you
that.
say?
Just you have to. I think now is the time to prioritize. What you are going to be emotionally involved in. Be very mindful of how much you're taking on.
Hmm. Okay. Well, I appreciate that. And I want to say, oh, you know what I was going to ask you? And this may have to be a whole nother conversation too, but I was going to ask you, when you come back, I want to talk to you about how COVID, I know that you're not a COVID specialist, but I know that in the things that I've read, COVID it damages your organs. And I think that's something that we're thinking about, oh, I don't want to get sick. And we know that there is, most people do recover, which is great. But what we don't seem to necessarily remember is recovery doesn't mean that you are back to where you were. It doesn't mean you're 100% again, because it damages your insides. So I wanted to kind of talk to you about that when you come back as well.
Okay.
So thank you so much.
But what people can do now, like I said, like, stop smoking cigarettes.
Amen.
That is really going to save your life right now. Stop smoking.
Yes. Say it again, just one more
That's
time.
what I say today. Stop smoking.
All right.
All
I got
right.
to give it to you for that. That's a good one. Okay. Thank you so much. Thank you for your service. And I wish you a beautiful, healthy day.
Thank you. You.
All right, family, if you didn't catch this live, catch it on the replay. Thanks for tuning in. Your health is in your hands. Our health is in our hands. Ashe. We'll see you next time.